Hey everyone. So it's been a while since BorgHammer. We've explained some things on YouTube a bit here and there. Death. Lots of death. Farm stuff. The general hustle and bustle of reality on top of the very real, wild, wacky nonsense of life beyond the screen. They've all just been stacking up, and recall that this is one of 8 channels that we want to get active. Money, technical issues, scheduling, politics. Long story short, it's been a wild one. We've got some more Patreon money lately, and with any hope we'll get to that $200 goal soon enough so that we can start binging Warhammer 40k novels for research. We aren't going to go into fine detail about things, but if you really want to hear about what's actually been going on in our life, we'll either have it on one of our other channels, or you can reach out to us on Discord about it. Now that Adam is slowing down in education, and we're trying to get this new schedule cemented into place, we should get more opportunities to get things done together. Without further ado, let's get things going. Welcome back, attractive and well-educated watchers, to our long-term series, BorgHammer. Last time we left off, we discussed the Borg Collective. This time we aim to finish off that particular portion of the series so we can finally get this scenario going properly. We know it's taken a while to get to this, and there were certainly some last-minute additions, previously unnoticed in the alpha, but whatever else we find in the future, we will have to have mentioned in the episodes where they arise. We've previously discussed their weapons, defenses, ships, and communications, but today we'll start off with the Borg Collective's soldiers.
Borg drones are like the Build-A-Bear workshop of body horror. Any drone can be outfitted for specific tasks and roles, but a majority of drones are generalized multi-purpose units. They're physically strong enough to outright kill aggressors, and no technology can withstand their ability to hack for very long. Notably, this was stonewalled by Data in First Contact. With an encryption algorithm he whipped up on the fly, but that's to be expected from the one crew member that has taken over the entire ship before to fulfill a homing program activated by Dr. Soong. Anyway, Data's mutiny aside, even the Borg standard drone is a substantial and credible threat to anyone and any technology, and they can be outfitted for multiple specific roles, from infiltration to just straight-up combat. Any drone can be repurposed to fulfill any role, which gives them an unparalleled versatility. This includes a personal shield that all drones are equipped with.
And this isn't even covering how, as mentioned in the caveats video at the very beginning of this series, even partially assimilated drones like Locutus are powerful enough to one-shot regular humans and had to be personally overpowered by Data himself, someone who, in TNG Measure of a Man, easily bends a bar of par steel, quote, with a tensile strength of 40 kilobars, unquote. This, in Memory Alpha, is established to be around 10 times the strength of steel, making the average Borg drone able to easily bend steel and punch through reinforced concrete with minimal effort. Now, we don't need to know what a kilobar is to know that this is a highly impressive feat, and even that could only remove the head of Locutus' main arm attachment, such a struggle clearly taking considerable effort by Data to achieve. Whatever makes an assimilated entity a Borg drone greatly increases their strength, durability, and overall capacity in battle. It would seem to add all of the biological distinctiveness assimilated by the Collective beforehand into the new drone, incorporating what the Collective has learned about other species into whatever species it discovers. In the case of tactical drones, even their body infrastructure, armor, interior circuitry, tubes, etc., are made of tritanium, giving them amazing staying power under fire even when we don't consider their biological distinctiveness. What it doesn't do is expand on their dexterity. Ugh. But that's okay when you're surrounded by hundreds of thousands of near-invincible drones. There's no reason for them to run after you. Resistance is futile.
Assimilation tubules are standard issue in every drone, able to inject nanoprobes into a given victim and quickly integrate them into the Borg Collective at a very basic level. They haven't been modified so much, but they are still now part of the collective and will fulfill the collective's will. Not only do post-2380 Borg assimilate their targets with these tubules in mere minutes, thanks to their expanded perfection of nanoprobe technology by that time, but the tubules themselves seem able to penetrate any energy field or material substance that the Federation has ever discovered, leaving little to no defense against their onslaught, short of simply not being in contact with the Borg drone physically. Perhaps more importantly, in the large scale, assimilation tubules seem to be able to interface with and even reconfigure lesser technology into Borg technology with enough time, able to simply inject their nanoprobes into an engineering console on a Federation ship. The Borg have been able to hack entire stations and start the assimilation process without anyone really even knowing it. This seems to be even possible with solid material substances, the tubules being able to inject nanoprobes into bulk matter to slowly alter it on the microscopic level into what the Borg want it to be, which is usually tritanium. And it's not even just lesser tech. Seven's nanoprobes were able to infect the Doctor's mobile emitter in the Voyager episode Drone, tech from a couple of centuries in the future. With that and a tissue sample, they grew a whole-ass drone from virtually nothing, maturation chamber and all, with greatly accelerated growth beyond what the collective was capable of. Within 48 hours, they had a future tech drone on their hand.
That was on accident. By the way, one is our personal favorite Borg.
One was badass. He took out a whole Borg vessel by straight up just overriding it and wresting it from the control of the collective. The Borg are like a glacier in their relentless pursuit of a target. They will grind you down and assimilate you if you're a potential use to the hive, and nothing short of complete destruction will stop them. They will wear down your shields, kick you out of warp, and do whatever is necessary to carve you and your ship up for the use of the hive. If you run, you're only going to be assimilated tired.
That being said, the Borg are not without their own tactics. While we've said we'll steer clear of a lot of Picard references in this particular series, we think it's particularly fitting when 7 of 9 says in Picard Season 2, Episode 1, The Stargazer, quote, "Victory through any means necessary and, in the absence of strength, deception," unquote. This is also, for the record, in reference to the question of whether or not the Borg Collective would change strategies. Not important why. They have a long history of falling back after any given defeat and completely reanalyzing the conflict for a new approach. At first, they tried to assimilate humanity through a brute force attack. This failed, so they took a step back and attempted other means of infiltration. When that ran its course, they sought to actually make deals with the Federation, if obviously never intending to carry out their end of the bargain. That didn't work, so they went back in fucking time to circumvent the entire issue before it ever happened in the first place. And that didn't work, so, well, you know, the list just goes on and on. Not only will something only work on them once or twice before they adapt, they'll only fail at a certain tactic once or twice before they adapt their strategy. Whatever is necessary to achieve perfection, they will do it. And they have a lot of options available to reach those ends. The Borg Collective has all the personal tactics and maneuvers of anyone that they have assimilated. Since they have assimilated Jean-Luc Picard, for example, they understand how to use trans-sea maneuvers in active combat. And they were able to assimilate him thanks to a distraction technique which they clearly already grasped. Since they've assimilated Romulans, they'll understand how to utilize trickery and subterfuge on a deeper level than most could even fathom. Since they've assimilated Federation ships, they've added adaptive shielding to every vessel as a standard by the time of Voyager. Long story short, the Borg are able to use any number of complex tactics if they honestly think that it would give them a statistical advantage. When you see the throng closing in on you, chances are that they've already taken advantage of these many underhanded techniques. Worse yet, it's almost certain that they see your tricky maneuver coming, since they have such a diverse pool of experience to call upon in any given combat situation. And even if you happen to come up with something they've never experienced before, there's still a strong chance that they've assimilated one of your buddies, and that very same buddy clued them in on your plans. They readily target high profile individuals when considering who to assimilate first every time they encounter a new potential target. Captains and admirals, presidents and mayors, the leader of any faction that they can get their tubes into, often in hopes that the face of said leader will bring the faction they're trying to assimilate down without, or at least with less, of a fight. Everything is about efficiency, so even if the odds of enemy surrender are low, they are not zero, and so simple a maneuver as assimilating a world leader and having them tell their people to stand down is not without its merits. After all, therein lies the logic of their classic motto. It's not likely that people will simply surrender and allow themselves to be assimilated, sure, but the chance isn't zero, and the expense of energy to establish the statement is negligible. Suitably, they almost always take out shields and engines first, with assimilation consistently beginning in engineering if the Borg have a choice in the matter. This allows them to shut an entire vessel down from the inside right at the beginning of the fight and continue on from there with mass assimilation. And of course, in following the doctrine of perfect efficiency, they will only ever send as little as they think they have to in order to meet their objectives. In the Star Trek universe, this normally manifests itself as only sending a single Borg cube to assimilate an entire civilization, but it could easily lower itself down to an individual drone level if the collective considered this to be the most efficient tactic.
We are the Borg. Lower your shields and surrender your ships. We will add joint biological and technological distinctiveness to our own. Your culture will adapt to service us. Resistance is futile.
This ultimatum is the core of Borg culture. The Borg do very little in the way of independent research unless it is absolutely necessary or could improve the collective in some way. Most of their technological advancement comes from simply taking the knowledge through the process of assimilation, forcibly connecting individuals to the hive mind, stripping them of any trace of individuality and emotion to work for the benefit of the hive. Through their use of technology to augment their biology, they seek a loose and largely undefined definition of perfection.
While we will establish that this is true on a certain level, we see from 7 of 9 throughout the entirety of the Voyager series that the Borg do have hundreds of ongoing research projects at any given point, and even tore a hole in space-time to reach fluidic space just to see what was there. Just to see if there was something worth assimilating in the space beyond their own known reality. No prompting from any other species required. That's how they accidentally unleashed Species 8472 on themselves and the rest of the galaxy. While humanity and the Federation at large is certainly a better general innovator, we want to stress that the Borg do advance on their own, just very slowly. Think along the same lines as the Vulcans. We imagine they do an awful lot of number crunching and research specifically to get to the next 2 or 3% out of every given model, instead of innovating new and unpracticed technology. Their purpose is perfection, not creation, you see, so they adopt, use, and improve the tried and true. The Borg probably didn't invent transwarp, nanoprobes, or transporter technology, but after they got their hands on them, they did perfect them. By this point, able to cross the galaxy in minutes, teleport through powerful shield systems, and assimilate people in mere moments. If they see something they like, they will take it, and once they have it, they will perfect it. And before you know it, that thing will be standard issue for all Borg drones, just like everything else.
The Borg also have an almost religious reverence for a substance called the Omega molecule, a generally unstable artificial molecule that was once researched by the Federation as a power source, and which the Borg have experimented with as well. It is capable of destroying subspace, making warp travel through the affected areas impossible. The Borg are still trying to research it, but more cautiously. It was only seen to be stable one time, and that was before it was safely dissipated by Voyager. The Federation is willing to completely ignore the Prime Directive to destroy any trace of the Omega molecule. That being said, if the Borg Collective ever managed to stabilize and utilize the Omega molecule, which is something they're always trying to do, it would hypothetically allow them greater power than ever before, enough to rival such entities as the Q and other godlike powers at home in the Star Trek universe.
But they were not always this powerful. At least one species in Trek has stated that the Borg Collective were once underneath their notice, some backwater species of primitives with only a handful of planets around 1484. In that time, they've assimilated thousands of different species and taken hundreds of worlds, their numbers growing to trillions. Which is a lot in the Star Trek universe. This means that in just under 900 years, the Borg have gobbled up a solid eighth of the entire Milky Way galaxy, and if we consider a tiny bit of the Picard timeline, they may have nearly doubled their territory in just the 20 years between Picard and their last run-in with the Federation. While it may seem like they were indiscriminate during that time, the Borg is surprisingly choosy, generally consuming entire civilizations only once they reach a point of technological or biological distinctiveness worthy of the Borg's attention, or incorporating important groups of a certain species when that species is found to have particularly potent natural abilities at any given stage of technological development. While it is our opinion that assimilating these less capable species would not hold the collective back, it is the position of the Borg Collective to only send the minimum required force to do a given mission, and only collect from something if it is of worth. If that fails, then the Borg have ample numbers to send a larger force immediately thereafter, and so forth until the enemy is finally destroyed or assimilated. In this way, the Borg Collective values efficiency and strongly considers whether or not something is or isn't necessary before actually assimilating it. For example, several species in the Trek universe have been stated to be unsuitable for assimilation simply because they are not biologically or technologically distinctive enough, such as the Kazon. These species are generally ignored, but if they become aggressive, will be summarily destroyed by the Collective.
Where the Borg truly excel, and one reason they are so feared, is that they can put ships and troops almost anywhere with almost no warning at all. One way they do this is with a technology seldom seen, the transwarp hub. Like how warp drives allow ships to travel in subspace, the transwarp network is effectively a network of artificial wormholes. There was even one route that literally dumped a Borg sphere with Voyager inside it onto Earth's doorstep. And with the exception of some energy fluctuations, there was no indication that an exit to that network existed that close to Earth. These structures are housed in and around unicomplexes. Even larger space station type sites, usually well hidden and defended in nebulae. A queen can usually be found running the show in such complexes. The Borg are capable of the complete assimilation of planets as well as terraforming them if necessary to make a planet of billions of Borg working on who knows what. If they take an entire world, it is for sure necessary and a strategic asset, and usually they simply just strip the surface of planets, sweeping entire colonies up like stripping sod off of farmland to sell to landscaping companies.
The Borg Collective even did this very thing to Earth in an alternate timeline, as shown in Star Trek First Contact. As you can see, nothing is spared on an assimilated planet, and we can assume that such places are well protected and can shoot back if shot upon, as planetary defenses are present in the Star Trek universe, and it would be illogical to assume that the Borg wouldn't have their own. The very planet itself is used to its utmost, cleared completely for resources, and entirely impregnated with Borg technology. Who could say how far their tunnels run into these nightmare worlds? One thing is for sure, however. Once the Borg take a world to this level, there's little chance to take it back, even with the most impressive of armaments.
To my knowledge, the Borg have never used this tactic, but it is one they would be aware of that would confuse the enemy briefly. The Picard maneuver, no, not the uniform adjustment. It was a tactical ploy used by Captain Picard on a couple of occasions. By engaging the warp engines for an instant, the after image of the ship is left in place while the actual ship suddenly appears in a new location, about as close to a teleportation feint as you can get. Its uses are limited, but it has been used to fake the destruction of a ship and to instantly close the distance, confusing sensors which are now trying to reconcile two identical ships.
Perhaps more importantly, it simply shows that Star Trek ships, and thus the Borg Collective, have the capacity to pull off faster-than-light maneuvers in battle in real time. This is sort of a rare treat in science fiction media, and means that the Borg Collective can, anytime they want, carry out trans-sea combat or use fancy maneuvers to reposition themselves advantageously in big, dangerous fights. Because they have no identifiable front or back and can move in any direction they so desire, a Borg vessel can functionally ignore pesky physical matters like inertia or acceleration in space combat. Furthermore, it's reasonable to assume that slower-than-light munitions can easily be dodged by such maneuvers, provided you have the power and computational performance to perform them in real time, which the Borg Collective certainly does.
The transporters are another tactically useful tool. We're not going to debate how the transporters work, whether they destroy your original body and rebuild you anew, or you move through subspace to a new destination in one piece. They can deposit troops into potentially shielded areas if the transport beam is sufficiently strong enough across tens of hundreds of thousands of kilometers. It's become such a staple of travel in Star Trek that in Star Trek Picard, they're essentially door frames you can just walk through and be on the other side of the planet like you walked through a Stargate. The ability to put troops into sensitive or advantageous areas instantly is obviously a game changer tactically.
It's not certain if the Borg have subspace transporters, but even the Federation had deemed such technologies impractical, so it's entirely possible that the Borg Collective reached the same conclusion. Regardless, the standard Federation transporter range is around 40,000 kilometers as of the time of this scenario. We're going to say that, being the Borg, they can probably get out to around 50,000 kilometers just to fit with their almost certainly better than comparisons to all other standard technology we've seen in the Trek universe. How the Borg Collective's transporters really stand out, however, is their ability to penetrate shields. Normally, in most science fiction settings, shields stop transporters and teleporters pretty consistently. The Borg Collective, however, have transporters that can penetrate Federation shields and other similarly powerful barriers, allowing them to simply beam over scout drones without caring about the battle readiness of their opponent. Even if the shields are good, their tractor beams actively drain energy sources and opposing shields, so if the tractor beam opens even a small hole in those shields, the Borg will take advantage of the gap by transporting some of their own down the line.
Now let's talk about replicators. No, not the Stargate technobugs. Pattern replicators are simply replicators, can make anything from a martini to a guitar if the item and its molecular makeup is in the computer. It follows this recipe with the cold cookie cutter efficiency one would expect from a computer, resulting in a widespread trope about replicated food tasting in some way strange and less real than when it's made by hand. Some people even complain about the tomato soup the computer makes. It's tomato soup. It takes a bit to make it palatable, and if you order it plain with no seasoning, I'd say the computer rendered it perfectly, and you screwed up when you expected something else. I'm looking at you, Tom. You asked for that. No one to blame but yourself.
We'd like to stick our face in this and frankly insist that the replicators just don't make food as good as a chef. While we could point out any given episode, we don't need to. It's functionally established across almost every single series that replicators just can't make food as good as the real thing. Even the replicators in the 32nd century draw comments that apples, quote, don't quite taste the same as the real thing, unquote. Upon being told that this apple was, quote, made of our shits, you know, unquote, the Orion who made the original comment refused to continue eating. It's not bad for shit, according to the Admiral of Starfleet at the time. power move, by the way. That's all that guy does the entire time he's on screen. One power move after another. He's our hero. We have a personal hypothesis around why replicators suck at making food, but we'll get to that in a different video. Right now, we're here for the Borg Collective.
The standard understanding of how the replicator works is that it builds the item molecule by molecule in an insanely quick manner from hydrogen. How is it just using hydrogen? I'm glad you asked. Somehow, without blowing up the ship with the energy release, hydrogen is fused during the replication process into heavier elements, which are then combined in the right way to build a martini and the glass it comes in from the ground up, which means that anything can just be built on the spot, from an artificial eye ready for a new drone to an arm-mounted disruptor cannon. Remember when we said that a drone is a Swiss Army meat sack? This is how the Borg pull off quick repurposing, replication of needed parts, and then it's just as simple as plug and play at that point.
Indeed, it would seem as though Borg drones simply don't have to eat, as any of their biological processes are fed using replicated matter within their own body. They can utilize internal replicators to alter parts within their attachments and to construct nanoprobes on site. At the scale that they are working, the Borg can simply perform direct energy-to-matter-to-energy transitions, constructing matter from the ground up using energy fed to them from the collective alone. And none of this takes into account the tractor beam.
Ah yes, the tractor beam. The gravity-manipulating magic of an invisible tether. The tractor beam is able to push and pull objects by manipulation of gravitons, if memory serves. Is potentially strong enough to prevent a ship from going into warp in the Trek universe by essentially anchoring it in place. This does subject the ship being held to enormous stress, and the tractor beam can be overcome by other means, such as feedback of gravitons, which overload the system. But if a ship is trying to go warp and refuses to obey the tractor beam's pull, it could tear itself to pieces.
And the Borg know that the stress is a factor, because they have been known to use their tractors to push one side of a ship and pull the other to rip it in half. While Voyager in Voyager Parallax was once able to grab something at 20,000 kilometers, it's entirely likely with the Borg ships that the tractor beam can extend even further, since the Borg cutting laser and tractor beams tend to work in tandem during most combat scenarios, with the tractor beam stopping a ship before the cutting laser chops it up for analysis and assimilation. And in the case of the Borg Collective, tractor beams also consistently drain the power of a ship in their hold, sucking away at the shield so that they can better chop you up and beam aboard. Consistently some of the most devastating tractor tech in the Star Trek universe, the Borg tractor beam is equal parts utility and weapon, shown to be able to lift entire cities off of a planet's surface and leaving later passers-by to wonder what even happened, all the while hunting down and holding ships hopelessly against their will, while drones are transported en masse to consume the victim from the inside out with their nigh unstoppable nanoprobes. Hey all, okay, so, quick sidebar. So, after we'd already finalized the script for this video, we were idly watching through Deep Space Nine, as we do, and there's an episode we really have to bring up. In Deep Space Nine, Season 2, Episode 9, Second Sight, a man by the name of Professor Gideon Satek used a single shuttle with a deposit of protomatter to transmute all of the oxygen and carbon inside a long-dead star into helium and hydrogen to reignite that star. This was a drastic success, and at some point in the episode, it is established that his plans are functionally public. The Borg have absolutely assimilated that much information at this point, and continued to assimilate Federation assets and those of other species thereafter, meaning that the Borg Collective almost certainly has the power to reignite dead stars by 2380. This surprised us. More than that, it shocked us. We were shook. The idea of fissioning/breaking down that much heavy matter with what can be fit into a single runabout is terrifying, and it really sets the stage for the power of the Borg Collective to almost certainly be better than that. To put it into perspective, this feat requires at least 330 1,000 times more power than destroying an Earth-sized planet outright, assuming that the stellar mass we're dealing with here is roughly equivalent to Sol. The technology from Star Trek is beyond that of many science fiction settings in that 2380 is set during a time when people are starting to toy with stars, punch holes in the fabric of space-time to enter other dimensions, take brief trips into and out of black holes, and entertain the idea of working alongside gods and monsters, not as conquerors or victims, but as equals. And the chief fear among them, all of them, is the Borg Collective. Second Sight is an episode that really hits home the sort of power we're dealing with from the Star Trek universe at large. Never mind the Borg Collective specifically. Always keep that in mind. Star Trek's upper limit is so much more powerful than you might want to give it credit for. And the Borg Collective? They are the Star Trek universe's big bad.
Despite their lack of overly active ingenuity, the Borg are extremely versatile, having assimilated the collective knowledge of literally thousands of spacefaring civilizations. They have an answer for damn near everything, with little exception, and the power of one collective, one voice, one purpose means that they can bring a frightening level of attention to any given problem to sort it out. They are hard to put down, hard to escape from, and have proven on several occasions that in the face of their full might, resistance is futile.
Not only are the Borg absolute powerhouses in their own universe, they aren't too bad on the scale of most science fiction in general. From the ability to recognize their own weaknesses and quickly correct them, to the capacity to adapt to superior firepower and planning while using enemy numbers to their own advantage. Being able to transport themselves across the known galaxy in mere minutes, of course, that is nothing to scoff at either. The Borg Collective is, simply put, the gift that keeps on giving. Able to commit to battles several light seconds away in real time against entire armadas of enemy ships that themselves can do the same, the Borg Collective and all of the Collective's ships are hideously potent vessels with only one purpose: to find, analyze, and assimilate anything that has the misfortune of getting in their way and being suitably distinctive. In their introduction by way of the Q, the Borg were described as a force that doesn't assimilate individuals, but rather civilizations. And we've seen their capacity to take tens to hundreds of thousands of people and the entire community around them away forever with no difficulty at all. Perhaps worst of all, there is no Borg civilian. Every Borg is a battle-ready drone. Every Borg is your enemy. They do not pity the weak or indulge in diplomatic tactics unless they already gain from doing so. So there is never any mercy under any circumstances for any reason. Man, woman, child, they do not care. There is no compassion, there is no regret, there is no debate. Those things are irrelevant. There is only the Borg Collective.
We are Borg. Lower your shields and surrender your ships. We will add your biological and technological distinctiveness to our own. Your culture will adapt to service us. Resistance